We are continuing. Welcome everyone. We're continuing this shir on Likutei Moharan, Torah Samech Daled, which is on Parshas Bo. It also mentions a quote from Parshas Beshalach, so we're kind of in between the two. So I recommend you watch the first 4 videos in this series before you watch this one if you didn't watch them already. Oh, the deer. Alright, Baruch Hashem, we saw them. Heavy Rutz Tzvi. Vida. Alright, you should know. Sha'al Yedei Hanigun Shel Tzadik Shu Bechinas Moshe. That through the tune of the saint that is the archetype of Moses, Humales and the Shamas Mina Bikorsis Hazos. He's picking up those souls from that type of heresy. The second type of heresy that we spoke about, if you remember the earlier classes, that come from the vacuum, come from the empty space, and that fell in there into that heresy. Kidah, because you should know, shekol chochma v'chochma sheba'olam yesh lo zemer v'nigun miyuchad. Every type of wisdom that exists in the world has a song and a tune that is specified to that type of wisdom. That this tune, this song, this hymn is specified to this wisdom, this science, a particular religion or whatever it is. From this tune, this wisdom, from this hymn, from this song, this wisdom is drawn. Zamru maskil. That's what it says in Psalm 47, that you make music and then you become intelligent. Shekol seichel v'chochma yesh lo zemer v'nigun. That every form of intelligence, every form of wisdom, every science, every religion has a hymn, has a song, has an anthem, has a tune that is connected to it. Not only is connected to it, but that is the source of the wisdom. The music is on the higher level, and the wisdom is drawn from the music. And so therefore the science of heresy, the heretical sciences, the heretical wisdoms, also have a tune and a hymn, have a song, an anthem that is connected, that is specified to that wisdom, to that science of heresy. This is what our sages taught. There was a sage, Rabbi Elisha ben Avuya, and he became a heretic. And so after he fell into heresy, they called him Acher. They called him another one. He's not him anymore. He's somebody else. So Mahavi Bey, why did he fall into heresy? What was his problem? Zimra Yevani Psak Lepume. A Greek song never ceased from his lips, from his mouth. And also when he would get up from his studies, there would be many heretical books, volumes, that would fall from him, meaning assume it like be in his lap or something, and because when he would stand up, all of these heretical books would fall on the ground that he had on him. Kizeh toli bezeh. And Rabbeinu Nachman ben Fegel ben Breslov Zchusi L'Leinu Malkul Yisrael Amen. He said this depends on that from the song, from the music, comes the heresy. Kel Yedei Zemer Anal Shalai Pasek Mipiv. That first came the music, the heretical Greek Hellenistic music that never left his mouth. Kel Yedei Zeh Hayosifrei Min Noiflim Mimenu. That led to the next step of the books of the sectarians, of the heretics, that he was studying. Even maybe he might have been studying them for a good purpose. He might have been studying them for the sake of arguing, Damashitashuv. Nonetheless, the way I say this like this, because he was connected musically to this study, that was from a higher level, that attached to his soul, and so therefore he was further damaged by the heretical teachings, which I can understand. That's the power of music. I would tell people, some people, they like to, listen to radio shows from different religions because they could call in and argue with them. Especially people like to call Michael Brown and argue with him. And I've done it. I've called him, I've argued with him. And I always tell anybody, if you're going to do that, when they play the music, turn it off. Don't listen to the music. Because the music will affect your soul more than the words. And that's always been my advice. It's better to stay away from all this, but if you have a tachlis of trying to save people away from the heresy and away from the idolatry, so you're going to call up Michael Brown and argue with him. If you have a good argument, most people don't have a good argument. They should just stay away from it altogether. If you're a Talmud Chacham and you're an apologist and you know how to do these things, still, nonetheless, it's good to stay away from the music. Although one of my friends, he had a taina, he said he doesn't understand. You have modern Orthodox people who listen to Israeli music, and they don't listen to music from other religions when they're singing our words. They're singing our Tehillim. You shouldn't listen to the Israeli music either if they're secularists. It's one thing to listen to holy music from good Jews who happen to come from Eretz Yisrael. It's a different story. Talmidei Chachamim, someone like Yosef Karduner, that's not Israeli music, that's holy music. Or this other guy who's gotten popular now was saying in Madison Square Garden a few weeks ago, I don't remember his name, but he's very popular. He's a Talmud Chacham. He's a Vorli Yid. That's not Israeli music. Even though his music is popular among the Israelis, that's Jewish music. The same thing. I always say, Nissim Black. Even though the style is a rap style, his music is Jewish music because there's Yerushalayim in it. And Country Yossi is another example. I actually wrote to him today on Facebook. There's so much Musar and Yerushalayim in Country Yossi's music. Even though he's like a Jewish Weird Al or Dr. Demento, he's taking these other songs and shtickle, he's making parody, making Litzanis, whatever, but it's not really Litzanis. It's really, if you listen, it's Musar, it's Yerushalayim. Wissen, wenn sie kaufen, wissen, wenn sie laufen, wissen, wenn sie, it's really deep stuff, a lot of his music, a lot of his lyrics. I mean, he has his own original music too, which also is filled with Yerushalayim. There's a Zaya Grois of Vorli Yid in Country Yossi. People don't chap. My mother is not frum, and she feels like it's a mitzvah to listen to Country Yossi, and that's what gets, and like when like if I'm in the car, they play for me Country Yossi. Something she pronounced like Yahtzee. Kind of play for me Country Yahtzee, and we listen, and I see the Yerushalayim that comes, even though she's not a Shomer Shabbos. She was intermarried, whatever. Now my father's not here anymore, so I'm coming up to your side. It's Bishas B'Shvat, but you see, like, so much Yerushalayim. It's like she becomes pious. She becomes, there's kedusha there from Country Yossi. So even though he's taking non-Jewish songs, mostly country songs, he takes songs from Johnny Cash and from Waylon Jennings, and I love them. I listen to them, I'll be honest. And I know there's one guy here, he thinks he's such a big framaker, he also likes their music. So anyway, B'manav Shach, he should be well. I wish everybody well, you know. Maybe not all the time, but once in a while. Rabbi Nachman says you need a little bit of shtus once in a while, or else, you know, and it's true. I think, you know, this other younger man was Gavarna for Darbener. If he would have been more middle of the road and he wasn't so for Frumta Chassidish, which I know he was pretty normal. That's the strange thing. Even though he davened very ehrlich and he learned with tremendous hasmada. Again, this is the Maisa of Acher. That if you have the Zemer Yevoni and the Chochmas Yevonis and the Sifrei Minim, it can sich fallen, you know. And for sure, someone who came from a certain place, you know, there's a Choshev Ingerman, not Ingerman, he's a Choshev Yid. He's not Ingerman, he's already a Zayda. Is Chaim David Sirachik, and he told me he learns out. He was involved in. Shlomo Carlebach found him in a, what do they call it? An ashram. He was like a Buddhist or something, Buddhist or a Hindu, and he was a Yid from South Africa. And you know, he said like this. He said when it says you're not supposed to go back to Mitzrayim, he understands that that's wherever you came from. So he said like this. He said, you know, he's traveled all over the world doing concerts, and his music is really Voila music. Chaim David Sirachik, he's really a Voila Yid, and he said he's never been. Well, at least when I saw him, this 20 years ago, more than 20 years ago, I had a Suda in his house once. And he said to me, he's never been back to South Africa. So that's the thing. If you came from somewhere, you don't go back. You know, you can think about the comparison. There's the one like what Sarah Yocheved Rigler. She talks about how she was trying to reach nirvana. She was in the ashram, and someone interrupted her, and she got so angry at the person. And then she realized when she's a Yiddish mama and her baby pushed over a pile of a bowl of Cheerios and made a big mess, and she didn't get angry, that she reached a much higher madrega than what she was looking for in the ashram. When she got angry that someone interrupted her just before she reached the madrega she was looking for. And I'll tell you, this Ingerman, the Fordorben Ingerman, this Inzera Acher, and I'm trying to be a Rebbe Meir to his Acher, but I'm giving him some space right now, but maybe he'll listen to this. I hope so. And he, they say Acher was involved in the same type of apicorsis that he is. Similar. I don't know the whole aspect of it, because there's different types. But in any event, I had something good to say and I forgot it. For Darwin Ingerman. Maybe it's been a Shemayim. I know, I Manav Shach. So, he said to me, I talked to him, I'm trying to record him, he said he got more sipuk from the Avodah Zarah than from davening. And my answer to that, I told it to a Galach actually, and the Galach was mispol from this, which is a simple pshat that we have, is Mayim Genuvim Yimtaku. Right, the pasuk says in Mishlei, the verse says in the book of Proverbs that stolen waters are sweet. You know why they say that there's, you could do the same deed but you're doing it in a prohibited way, there's more pleasure. Sometimes they say such a thing. Not always, but they say such a thing. Why? Because stolen waters are sweet. And so all right, so he has this, it's not, I wouldn't say it's a sipuk, but he has a geschmack from the Avodah Zarah because it's stolen waters. Because he's a Yid now, even though he denies such a thing, but he's sof kol sof, he's a Yid, and of course he probably gets more of a geschmack than any goy has, because he has a Yiddish neshama, and so because it's usher to him in a way that it's not usher to a goy. He probably has a bigger geschmack from it than the goy has, and he probably has a bigger geschmack from it now than he did when he was a goy. Because now he has the Yiddish neshama, and the Yetzer Hara is chapterain a Yiddish neshama. Anyway, Hamevin Yovin. So anyway, al yedei zeh hayosifrei minim shaloi pasak mipiv al yedei zeh hayosifrei minim leiflim manim. Because of the music, because of the Greek music, the Hellenistic music, that is why he had the heretical books, and the heretical books drew him to heresy when he was Oiled Pardes, and he saw the Malach Matat, and he misunderstood the Indian of the Malach Matat. And I'll tell you, I think I once saw the Malach Matat, and it was very scary to me. But that's it for a different time. But anyway, but I didn't fall into Baruch Hashem. I didn't think there were shtei reshuyos just because I saw the Malach Matat. Maybe it wasn't the Malach Matat. I don't know, but I saw something. It was making kavanas that intended to reach the Malach Matat. Anyway, the music was that music that was connected to Acher's particular form of heresy and sectarianism. Nimsa, so we find
the end of the Civil War was near when by accident
there was a Zemer Yavani. So anyway, Nimsa, we find. Let's get through this, and then I'll call my friend back. We find that each type of wisdom, according to its archetype and according to its level, also has a particular song and tune that's connected to it and is specified to it, and also for every level because from one level to the next level, because this concept of the wisdom that's on this higher level has a tune and a song that is on a higher level according to its archetype, and so too you go higher and higher until the very first point of creation, the Big Bang, whatever, or even that's probably Mistama already in the Chalal Panoi, but whatever it means, which is the beginning of Atzilus, so it's higher than the Big Bang. The Big Bang is somewhere in Asiya, but the first emanation, and there's nothing higher than that, and there's nothing surrounding that wisdom that is there except for the light of the endless light of God, which surrounds the empty space, the vacuum, that within it is all of the creation and all the wisdoms. So for sure, also there's this archetype of wisdom. However, the wisdom that is there in the light of the endless light of the infinite, it's impossible to know and to understand it, because the endless light, the Ein Sof, that's God Himself, may be blessed. And His wisdom is impossible to understand at all, to grasp at all, and there's nothing there except for the archetype of faith, which is higher than the archetype of wisdom, because we believe in God. See, a friend, I don't answer the phone. My wife has to answer the phone, right? So anyway, the this archetype of faith, which is higher than the archetype of wisdom, because we believe in God. We have faith in God that His endless light surrounds all the worlds and fills and surrounds everything. Let me just make this turn here because I don't want to. I got to keep my eye on the road here. This guy's stopping, or yeah, thank you. All right, and faith also has a song and a hymn and a tune, a zemer and a nigun that is specified to faith, and we see even the pagan faiths, the other religions, with their foolishness and their mistakes that they make. Also, there are all kinds of beautiful music, all kinds of beautiful hymns that are attached to the faith. And each faith of each different religion has its special music. You know, like I work in the prison, and you hear, the Catholics have their hymns, and the Orthodox have their chants and their hymns. Orthodox Christians, and then the Protestants, they make like a rock concert. The low church Protestants, the evangelicals, whatever, and then the Native Americans, they have their songs, and that's very important to them, their music. And then the pagans have their music. Muslims, we have Salafi Muslims, they don't believe in music, but they still, there's a chant to how they pray to make the Salat, Ameen. That's still an Indian of a nigun, even though that's not a Avodah Zarah, that's just believing in God. But anyway, so they sing, they make this music, they have the hymns, and they set it up and they orchestrate the music in their churches. And so too, the opposite, it's in holiness. Every faith has its own song and its own tune, its own hymnal. And this hymn that's particular to this faith, which is the highest faith, which is higher than any type of wisdom and faith in the world, which is the faith in the endless light Himself of God, which surrounds all the worlds, as we said above, that song, that hymn, is also above all the other music and hymns and songs in the world that apply to each particular wisdom and each particular faith. And all of the hymns and all of the tunes of all the wisdoms all come from this original, highest, holiest song, the highest and holiest tune, which is above all of the hymns and all the songs, all the tunes of all the wisdoms. And that is the song that is connected to the faith in the endless light itself, which is above everything. And in the future, when all of the nations, all of the communities, all religions will all turn with one clear speech to call them all in the name of the Lord, as it says in Sphania, in Zephaniah 3:9, then they will all believe in God, and then will be fulfilled that which it says in the Song of Solomon, Shir Shirim, chapter 4, verse 8, which we can homiletically understand as come and sing to the head of faith. The head of faith specifically, this concept of the archetype of the highest faith that we said above, which is the head of all faiths, as we said before. And this will specifically sing, meaning the tune and the song that belongs to the head of faith, as we said above. And to this concept of this song of the highest faith, of this highest faith, no one is worthy to it except for the saint of the generation, the Tzaddik Hador, which is the archetype of Moshe, of Moses, which is the level of this faith, which is this level of silence, this level of be quiet, because thus has it risen up in the thought, as we said above, only in thought and not in word, meaning that it's higher than the concept of words, as we said above, because Moses is the archetype of silence, as we said above. And this is what it says in this week's Parshas B'Shalach. Now we're going to stand, because for Shabbos Shira, Exodus chapter 15, verse 1, Az Yashir Moshe, then Moses will sing. And the sages, Gemara and Sanhedrin, Sadak Aleph and Beis, said, Sharlei Nemar Ela Yashir. It doesn't say he sang in the past tense, rather he will sing in the future tense. Mikan l'schiyas mesim in the Torah. From here we derive the homily that teaches that the Torah teaches there will be a resurrection of the dead, that Moses will sing in the future, that Moses is destined in the future to sing in the future that's coming as well, because all the songs, whether they're in this world or they're in the future world, they all come only from Moses. Moses, that archetype of Moses, of Moshe Rabbeinu, is where music comes from, which is the archetype of silence, that he's worthy to the song that is connected to the highest level of faith, which is superior and above everything else, because in there it includes all the songs, all the music, because all music in the world comes from that supernal level of music that comes from Moses. That's the archetype of Moses. Not that it comes from Moses, it comes from higher than Moses, but Moses is the archetype that's worthy to it. This is what Rashi explains. Yashir, he will sing in the future tense, Yud al Shem Machshava Nemra, that the Yud of Yashir, that makes it future tense instead of past tense, is speaking about the concept of thought. Again, Kach Ola B'Machshava. This is that concept of that which came up in the thought, as we said above, which is the level of Moses, which is the level of silence, the archetype of Moses, the archetype of silence, as we said before. And through this song, which of the saint, of the tzaddik, which is the archetype of Moses, as we said before, through this we go up and we leave all of the souls, it saves all the souls that fell into the heresy of the vacuum, the second type of heresy. And because his song, his tune, his nigun, is the archetype of Rosh Emunah, of the head of faith, meaning the highest level of faith, which is above everything, that through this tune and through this faith, they cancel all types of heresy, and then it's included in there, and it's canceling all the other tunes that is within this tune, because it's above everything, because from there comes all of the tunes, as we said above. And actually, in what do they call it? Some kind of physics, quantum physics. They actually say everything in the universe is music. All of matter is just music that's become crystallized. That's not the right way of saying it, but for lack of a better term, that really everything is music. All right, so we got to the next part, and that's what it's. And so we'll stop here, and we'll continue later. Thank you for watching. God bless. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment. We'll see you later. All right, how do I turn this off? Oy vey, what is going on here?